If you know your parts of speech and know pronouns, then you've already got a great start. But there are some advanced pronouns and situations with pronouns that you need to master, and those are relative pronouns. Who, whom, that, which, and whose. Now, if you are not really familiar with even basic pronouns or need to review more first, there's another video on pronouns that you can watch if needed. So what are relative pronouns? Relative pronouns help to refer to, clarify, or specify nouns. Okay? And there are 7 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, just kidding, 8. Who, whose, whom, that, which, whoever, whichever, whomever. Now, some sources may feature a longer list than just these. And in a few minutes, I will talk about some controversy about the exact number of relative pronouns. So again, relative pronouns help further describe or modify a noun, if you know what modifiers are. They can help start descriptive clauses and phrases. They launch essential and non-essential clauses and phrases. Now, the synonym here is restrictive or non-restrictive clauses and phrases. And I've got a video on these as well, if you need review here. But I'm just going to briefly talk about them in this video. So that's all kind of abstract. Here's some good examples of relative pronouns and the clauses or phrases that they start. Now, if I want to talk more about the candidate or which candidate I voted for, I have a relative phrase here launched by the relative pronoun who, and this phrase helps clarify which candidate I voted for. Which one? The one who had the most experience. Got it? So a relative phrase starts with a relative pronoun and it goes in close proximity to the thing it's describing. Check out that pattern in the next 4 sentences. Which dog got a blue ribbon? The dog that won the show. What kind of popcorn? Movie theater popcorn which was drenched in butter. Who's my brother, or which one is my brother? That thing with the curly hair. What about Maria? She's the girl whose book bag was stolen. And she also lost her homework. So again, the pattern. Relative pronoun kicks off a relative clause or phrase, and it describes a noun. Notice also that the relative pronoun and its phrase or clause can go anywhere in the sentence. It might be at the end of the sentence, in the middle, or more rarely at the beginning. They're often at the end, and sometimes in the middle, and the least at the beginning. Sound good? Now, this should sound easy, but a lot of us do something to mess them up. So I'm going to preview some of the ways we mess up relative pronouns so you can be smarter and you can not. The first biggest problem with relative pronouns is misuse of the pronoun which. Specifically, which versus where, when, and why. Now, back in the day, society used to be really good at using the pronoun which, especially in formal speech and informal writing. But as time has gone on, and as we've become less educated on the pronoun which, our informal speech and writing has started to misuse it or cut it completely. Okay? Now, which is supposed to go with prepositions like at which, for which, with which, on which, by which, etc. If you don't know what prepositions are, I've got a video on that too. So we were supposed to have sentences that said, I know a place at which the pizza is better. Or I liked the time in which we had a good fight. She explained the reasons for which we yawn. But because we're terrible at knowing when to use which and how to use it, instead we've started misusing words like where and when instead, and we're kind of shortcutting. Instead, we're saying like, I know a place where the pizza is better. Sound familiar? Or I liked the time when we had a good fight. Or she explained the reasons why we yawn. So these are considered the more informal ways of saying the same sentence. So one thing we do is we use the wrong kind of pronoun. So technically we should say it's the episode in which they win the lottery, but instead we might be tempted to say it's the episode where they win the lottery. In fact, we really like to misuse the word where. I know people who use the word where when we're not even talking about a place. I know people who in this sentence would say, I liked the time where we had a good fight. But wait, a time isn't a place. It's a time. So please be conscientious of informal versus formal situations, and if you should use one of the variations of the word which, or if you should use an informal pronoun, and if so, which one do you actually mean? Are you trying to say where, or should you actually probably say something like when or why? So again, one problem is that we totally use the wrong pronoun. The other problem is that we sometimes like to cut the pronoun completely. Maybe I should say that's the girl who I saw in the news, but maybe we're going to wimp out and cut it and take a shortcut and just say that's the girl I saw in the news. Now, it's again very common in informal speaking and writing to just cut the pronoun completely. But if you're going to perhaps write something formal and important, or if you're going to be in a formal speaking situation, please consider using a pronoun when you're describing a noun. Make sense? Cool. Here are a few other kinds of errors or problems. We have to care about relative pronouns for even more reasons. One reason we're going to care about relative pronouns is because it affects if we can use a comma in that spot. For example, the word that very often starts a restrictive clause or phrase and does not get a comma because the chunk of words that goes with the word that is considered important or restrictive or essential. Which pizza do I want? That would be helpful to know. I want the pizza that comes with all the toppings. This relative phrase that describes which pizza is important. So no comma here, and I'm going to say that. My camera is the one that takes HD video. This is considered important. It specifies which camera. The jeans that I bought last night. Which jeans? These jeans. But if my relative clause or phrase is considered optional or less important, then I'm going to call it non-restrictive or non-essential. I'm going to use the pronoun which, and I am going to use a comma. I walked my dog. Well, the sentence could end there, but if I'm going to keep going, then I'm going to say, which is a golden retriever. I could just say the episode was a series finale. But if I want to say more about it and clarify that it lasted 2 hours, that's optional or bonus info. So I'll use the word which and I'll give it a comma. Now, if I want to talk about the restaurant, I could just say that we drove to it. Or I could add on, which had a 3-hour wait. So again, less important stuff gets a comma in the word which. More important stuff has no comma and gets the word that. Another reason we care about relative pronouns is because it affects humans versus non-humans in sentences. Humans get the word who. Non-humans, including animals, grammatically get the words that or which. If I want to talk to my aunt who gives great advice, well, my aunt is a person. My cell phone is not a human, so it's going to get the words that and which. A shoe is not a person, and a photo album or an item is not a person. This might seem like a small, unimportant detail, but it does come up on standardized tests like the ACT and SAT, and it just makes you look smart if you use the right pronoun. The third reason we're going to care is because relative pronouns help launch, again, that relative clause or phrase, and modifiers like those need to go in the right spot. Any kind of modifier, especially relative clauses and phrases, belongs in close proximity to the noun it is describing. So it would be bad if I said the dog got a blue ribbon that won the show. This sentence would be bad because it makes it sound like the ribbon won the show. I mean the dog won the show, so I'm going to put this phrase close to the word dog and not mess it up. It would be bad to say Maria lost her homework whose book bag was stolen. That would be doubly bad because it makes it sound like the homework's book bag was stolen and that the homework is a person. So instead I'm going to say Maria, whose book bag was stolen, lost her homework. I'll put the relative clause or phrase close to the actual noun. Now we just reviewed a lot. Let's practice and put some of this together a little bit. Can you find the relative pronoun and its clause or phrase in these 6 sentences? Take a look. Pause if you need to if you want to think about it. And if you're ready, let's look at the answers. The runner who won the marathon trained for years. Now the runner is a person, so it gets the pronoun who, and this relative clause is in close proximity to the noun it's describing, which is runner. The next president, whoever the people elect, will have a lot to do. This is describing president, so they're right by each other. We promised a reward for whom? For whomever finds the missing dog. By the way, if you're confused about who versus whom, I talk about that in my other pronoun video, as well as my direct and indirect objects video. Which shoes do I want to buy? The ones that you wore. Again, shoes are not a person, so we're going to use that or which. And this is considered important because it's specifying which shoes, so it's that instead of which. Her dad baked brownies. What about those brownies? They were the best I'd ever eaten. The grammar quiz that I took wasn't actually that difficult. So this is describing the quiz, so it's going to go right next to the word quiz. Okay, again, we went over a lot in this video, so feel free to rewatch it if you need to. Otherwise, feel free to either move on or bring someone questions.